Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, August 11, 2026. Let's start off with our new character, Mr. Devlin St. John. We know that he was supposed to, make an appearance this week. He is Salem's, infamous water inspector. So he came to pay Paulina a visit first, and, he was like, "Do you know me? You hear about me? I was on the news, and, your husband named some sewage plant after me." And Paulina is like, "Huh? He named the sewage plant after you?" And I thought the whole thing was just hilarious how he came on with this weird wig and the glasses and the whole, the whole performance that he was doing was just hilarious. Anyways, he was there to question what was going on with the water quality and how there were some recent discoveries or inspections about the water. So he wanted to find out what Paulina knew. So Paulina knew about what was happening with the water quality, and she told him that it has been solved. So she said if there's nothing else to talk about, she has some meetings to go. So he said all right, but then he is going to question it further because something doesn't look right. Belle and Marlena also had, a scene together, and they were having lunch, and she told Belle about what's been going on with Kristen's disappearance, and she said that Brady spoke to her about getting in contact with Kristen, and Kristen said that she's gonna be away by her own will. So Belle found it very strange that she would disappear now, considering Rachel just got out of Bayview and how it's gonna affect her. So Marlena's wondering the same thing too, but she feels as if, there's something up to it. But maybe Brady's not even telling them what's really going on with her, like why she's actually doing it. So anyways, Marlena said that all they can do is just be there for Rachel and take her out to events. And they talk about attending this county fair, and then Marlena asks Belle, what about what's going on with the Italy trip? Is it happening still? So Belle said that Chad had a commitment with Charlotte, so it might not happen that the both of them are going to Italy together, and then she can't work around her own schedule, so she's thinking to just take the trip while she can. So Marlena said, "Are you sure about that? Because I don't think it's really safe." So she said she's traveled the world before, and she said, "Yeah, with your husband and child, but this is different. And you're trying to find a missing chess piece and everything. And I don't think once it's something steered by Stefano, it's gonna be unsafe. And I don't like the idea of you doing that. Like, I think you should just leave it up to Paul." But Belle said that Paul was on a mission, he had an assignment already, and he can't really take on that. Neither can the ISA. So she still wants to go ahead with it. So she said, "I am John and Marlena's daughter. Like, this is in me." So Marlena said, "Yeah, you're just like your father. You're your father's daughter when it comes on to just, not letting go of, finding out something. But I just feel more comfortable if you had Chad around, that you're not alone doing this." So she said that, we'll try to see if we can go together, and I'll let you know how that goes. She also asked about Marlena coming on a trip with her instead, but Marlena thinks she declined. So now, it's up to whether or not she's going to go alone or with Chad. Chad was over at the mansion, and he, ran into Kat because he's trying to find out what's going on with his sister. And at first, Kat was saying, "Oh, Lexi." So Chad said, "No, Kristen, nobody's heard from Kristen. She's been MIA," and spoke to Brady and Belle, and they were saying that, she just taken off and her phone has been disconnected. So he's trying to find out some more information from EJ to see if he knows anything about it. So Kat said EJ is awfully sick. Like, he's resting right now, and that's why I'm here, filing some, reports and all that. So he said that he will still take his chances because he wants to know what's going on with Kristen before he goes on this trip. So she's like, "What trip?" So he said that I'm heading to Italy. And she said, "Oh, with Belle?" So I said, "Yeah." So she said, "Italy is really nice at this time of the year, and I hope you guys have a wonderful trip," and all of that, right? So she's asking how is everything going, and he said, it's been going good so far, and she, is happy for him and wishes him all the best. Now he does take one of, I guess, the mask or something and go up to talk to EJ, but EJ is knocked out at this point, so he had to just do it at another time. So she said, if you find out anything, just let me know, and if you do go on the trip, I will keep a watch on your dysfunctional family for you. Yeah, also, before I get into this, Chad did have some conversation with Belle, and he told Belle about how he went over to see EJ, but EJ was really out of it. So she was saying, is it really a cop out? Maybe EJ don't want to take accountability for Kristen's disappearance. So he said, actually, I would say that too, but I went up and he was really out of it, wheezing, coughing, and Kat was there keeping him company. She was doing work at home as EJ would want her. So, of course, Belle was like, I wonder how that went, because she's admittedly a little bit jealous of Kat, but Chad said there's nothing to be worried about right there. So she asked him questions about how he felt after the whole custody thing, because him and Kat's breakup was really because he was forced to do it. But he said that he had feelings for her, but it's gone now. That was really it to their conversation. Didn't really pay much attention. Now into this one with Theo and Abe. It is Abe's birthday today. Before he came into the picture, Theo was on the phone with his grandma. He finally got through to his grandma, and he was asking, just trying to find out what's happening with his mom indirectly. And he was talking about how he wanted to plan a trip to New York. He wanted his mom's thoughts on that and everything, and how they can catch up later. Now, you can tell that something devastating happened after that fun conversation happened, but he couldn't get into it because Abe came in, and then he was saying, he was on the phone with Lonnie because, they want to do something for his birthday. So he asked Abe how is he feeling, what he want to do. He said he really doesn't create any fuss about his birthday, but they did end up getting he ended up getting a gift at the door from Lexi. It was a money clip because he always had his money all over the place. So she got him one customized with this infinity symbol, and it's a special thing between the two of them because of what happened to Lexi before, and just the thought of him being held forever by her love, something like that. And Celeste, they talk about Celeste and how Theo, Abe was saying how, Celeste was always on point with her premonitions, and also how she was able to foretell that Lexi was still around. Now, at some point, he does end up going out and said that he's going to do a celebratory dinner with him and Lonnie later on. Now, back to Mr. Devlin here, Mr. St. John. He went over to see Julie, so he wanted to question her about the fact that she, purified the possible contaminated well water, and now because she's purified it, there's barely nothing there, so it's now treated as like holy water. So it's like, yes, she did something noble, to protect other people from drinking it or getting in contact with it, but at the same time it erases any chance to really do any kind of investigations there. Now she, she said her purpose of it, and he took her word because he knows the strength of her word around town, giving her family name and all of that. So he's like, if you say there's no cloudy days and the sun coming out, something like that. He made a joke about it, it's believable. So anyways, he went on his way because he still wanted to get answers, but he accepted Julie and her word for sure. So this was really hilarious. I don't know, this guy is really he's really funny to watch, honestly, because he came in to find EJ, go to the Demare mansion to figure out what's going on with this water thing. So he wanted answers from EJ, but he got Rita. Now Rita is somehow smitten by this guy. I don't know if it's the glasses or just the fact that they're both kind of, kooky and weird, quirky, I should say. So Rita was kind of smitten with him, and he said that he wanted to see EJ, and she told him that EJ has a cold and it's not something to get really in contact with. So Mr. Devlin here, he said he got his flu shots. He really needs some answers about this well water, and he was asking Rita if she knew about him, he was on the news and all of that. So she said, no, never heard of you. So it was just funny. And she was trying to like get his attention, get him to be distracted from going to see EJ, but he held firm about that. And he said, while, flattery will get you everywhere, and, I guess his what he said, history novels or documentaries, whatever else he's into, he said that he really needs to go see EJ. So she held his hand, and they both were looking into each other's googly eyes, because at this point I don't know what is this going to blossom into, but hey, I'm here for it for Rita. So anyways, they went upstairs, and that was that. Now to this scene with Dimitri, Gwen, and Leo. Now, before we talk about Rafe coming in, Dimitri was talking about a new location and that nobody's really going to find them at this one. It's going to be really super remote. And Leo was like, you don't really have to do this, But anyways, Dimitri's like, the location where you're going, nobody's going to really find you. So Rafe came in with the guard, and Rafe said, I wouldn't think about that, right? So anyways, Gwen and Leo think that they are getting rescued by Rafe, thanks to the ICA and whatever. Like, at this point, Leo is grateful. Now, the guard is there, and Dimitri is like, I'll handle it over here. So, Rafe said, this is not really what I'm here for. I'm here to ask for Dimitri's help, and now they're just flabbergasted. Like, what could he want help from Dimitri for? So Rafe told Dimitri that there's a signed letter confessing what Gwen and EJ did to Dimitri and held him captive. So Dimitri knew this, but to hear that there's a letter about it, and he's like, where was this found? So now Gwen is like, Leo, what did you do? Because remember, Gwen entrusted Leo to like carry out whatever, if anything happened to her after a certain amount of time. So he said that he did go to the lawyer's office, and turns out her lawyer was on vacation. He went to Melinda Trask, and they were trying to find the letter, but the letter was not there. It was blank. So now he's wondering like how Rafe got into contact with it. So Rafe didn't really tell them how he got into contact, which was definitely unethical on his part, but he still used it. But he's like, the point is, now Dimitri, now that you know what's happening, what are you going to do? Like, we can bring back Gwen to Salem. You can come to Salem. We can charge both her and EJ for what they did. Like, they not only did that, but they also used your money to do unscrupulous medical experiments. They were unethical. Like, you could be putting the man bars. Like, finally EJ can pay for being the dirtbag he is. Bring him down to his knees. Like, what do you say? So it's like, even though it's tempting, he doesn't want to go through it. And Rafe is just upset because Rafe really wants EJ to pay. And I'm like, Rafe, you don't have nobody else to investigate. You're just really into EJ like that. It's just getting very annoying now, man, because he's like, yes, you have a personal vendetta, but oh my gosh, you don't have nothing else to do with your job. Anyways, Leo was also making a point about how EJ has hurt a lot of people, and what he could have done is really just, help Rafe get the bigger fish. Gwen doesn't have to pay for that. He's really after EJ, so maybe he could just go along with him. But Rafe says that, yeah, Gwen is still gonna pay for this, right? So Gwen is like, what about what he did to me, capture me? And like, Gwen, you set him off, right? Anyways, Dimitri said, well, that's tempting. He's not gonna do it. So Leo said, what about if you make a deal with me? What if you let her go with Rafe and I stay here with you? Because that's what really, is drawing Dimitri at this point. He was talking about how what Gwen did cost him years of his life, and also a chance to work it out with Leo, and he would never forgive her for that. So when Leo made the offer, we didn't get an answer, but I'm sure he would definitely want to like work it out with Leo, and he would do that even for Leo. So let's see how this goes, guys. So this is it for today's episode. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. Oh wait, before I end off, I forgot to mention that Theo did, he went to the hospital and he did, try to find Kayla, see if she knew anything about maybe Lexi being ill. He couldn't find her. He ran into Marlena and he asked Marlena if she knew anything about Lexi. So she can't really talk, as patient confidentiality and everything. But she didn't know anything about where she could be or whereabouts. So Theo was saying, he talked to his grandma. Turns out she's not there, so she lied about being in South Africa. So now he's worried, and she might be ill again. So Marlena couldn't provide any much information. So she said if she hears from her, she will let him know, and if he needs anything from her, she's here to help. Now he leaves, and Kat asks Marlena if she can come, talk to her for a minute. So I don't know, maybe I'm guessing that she's gonna confide in Marlena about where Lexi possibly could be. But let's see what's happening. That is it for real this time, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching.